Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel all about BI. This is also going to be about executing a PowerShell script from Azure Data Factory pipeline using custom activity. Okay, normally if we have some blobs in our blob container, right, it will either be in hot or cool tiers. Okay, if you want to frequently access a blob or file, you will place it in the hot tier. If you want to infrequently access the file, you will keep it in the cool tier. If you don't want to access it at all and make the file look offline and keep it for a few months or years, right, you will move it to archive tier. So how can we change the tier from PowerShell script in Azure Data Factory? That's what I'm going to tell you today. Okay, so the first step is already we know setting the context and all. Setting the context is nothing but just mentioning the resource group, container name and all. Okay, so the first line is to set the context, and the second line is to, or second set of commands are meant for changing the tier of a blob from one tier to another tier. Okay, what this particular set of lines do is the first line is to just establish an instance of the blob that we want to convert. Okay, suppose you have a file in your container that you want to change or put it in a different tier. Okay, I have to mention get Azure storage blob, so I have to get the instance of the file that I'm going to change tier to. Okay, so I have to mention which container and what is the file name. Blob is nothing but the file name that I want to convert. Okay, and the context. So this will be pointing to my blob in my container demo. Okay, and then I'm converting the or setting the access tier to cool. Okay, similar way you can set the access tier to archive, that I will show you a little later. Okay, so this is the syntax. We can use blob client class and use the set access tier method. Okay, this set access tier method converts or places the blob from the default tier, whatever it is, to cool tier. Okay, if it is in hot tier, it will move to cool tier. If it is an archive, there is a little tricky part of it. So if you have a container, inside that container you have certain files or blobs, each in different tiers. Okay, some may be in cool tier, some may be in hot tier, some may be in archive tier. If we use get metadata activity, it is going to, why we use get metadata activity? To just list or get the child items, right? So in order to loop through the files and load it. When we use get metadata activity, it will not check whether the blob is in hot or cool tier or archive tier. It will bring all the details to you, and it is we who have to filter out the archive tiers, because archive tiered blobs cannot be opened for reading. Okay, it will be offline. You cannot do anything with archive tier. So if you want to make use of a blob which is already in archive tier, you have to convert it either to cool tier or to hot tier. Okay, we have to rehydrate it, that's what they call it. So how do we rehydrate it and all, I'll tell you in the next session. Okay, one tricky part with archive tiers is if you mix the blobs which are in different tiers like hot or archive, cool or archive, you can't run certain commands. Okay, PowerShell commands, it's not working out. Okay, if I want to get the details of all the blobs, I will execute a command. Okay, get all blobs, something like that. If I do that, it says the operation cannot be performed on an archived blob. So we can neither list the archived blob, we can neither open nor read it. Okay, it is offline. You cannot execute any PowerShell based commands as far as I have encountered. PowerShell commands or Azure command line interface commands, nothing is working when you have an archive tier in your container, archive tier blob in your container. Okay, so what if I want to move my file to archive tier in a different container? So it is always better we archive the files in a different container. Okay, so all the archive containers, all the archive blobs need to be placed in a different container for executing the PowerShell script. Okay, we should not keep the archive tier in the same container where we have hot and cool tier blobs. Okay, so that is one thing to be noted. Today what I am going to show you is I have a test.txt file. This is going to be converted to cool tier, and after I have moved it to cool tier, I am going to archive it as well. Okay, just for showing the commands I'm telling all this. You can ask why I have to move to cool and then copy it to a different container in an archive tier and all. Just I'm going to show you the commands that I use. Okay, there is a very nice documentation available in Microsoft site as well, but just wanted to have you these commands handy so that you can try something that you wanted to. Alright, I'll show you the commands now. Alright, so the first part is to set the context. It's nothing but mentioning the resource group name and the container name. I mean, this is the storage account name. My storage account name is AZBlob2188. So that is my storage account name. And after I have set my context and I have established the instance to the blob that needs to be changed, and I can make use of the set access tier method. Okay, so after I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just see the metadata of my blob. So most of the times you will want to see the properties of a file or metadata of a file. So how to do that using PowerShell command, that's what I'm going to show you. Okay, again I have to establish a context, or I have to establish an instance of my file which I want to access or which I want to know the metadata. Okay, so that is what I'm doing here. And the next set is get properties method in the blob client class. Okay, under blob client class only we had the set access here. Same class needs to be used to get the properties of a file or blob. Okay, so how it is going to tell me what are the properties? I'm going to echo and see it. This is nothing but a print statement that is going to display me what are the properties associated with the blob. Okay, I'll show you how it shows the properties after I run the pipeline. So for now, just understand that blob client class has a very useful method called get properties that helps us get the metadata. Okay, like get properties, we can set some metadata as well, or we can update some metadata as well, that I'll cover in the next part of video. Okay, or maybe in the next video. Alright, so what we have done so far, we have moved a blob to cool tier from hard tier, and then I just want to look at the properties of the blob that I have converted tier to, and then I'm just I'm going to tell you how do we use Azure command line interface commands from a PowerShell script. Okay, command line interface is nothing but you open a command line window and then you type some command interactively. What if you want to execute a command line interface through a PowerShell script? That's what I'm going to tell you. Previously, when we have started discussing about PowerShell, right, I told you in the start task or the batch account settings, you have something called start task settings. Okay, wherein we have to mention or we have to download the PowerShell in order to use the PowerShell commands. Okay, this is what I showed you in the last couple of sessions before. See, same as PowerShell installation, we need to do something called this thing. So we have to install Azure command line interface commands in order to use it. Okay, so I'll be providing you the syntax in order to invoke or in order to install the required command line interface related files. Okay, without this it's not going to let you execute any command line interface command. Okay, so what this command basically does is, this is going to copy my file or blob from one container to another container and change the tier to archive tier. Okay, so what I'm doing, AZ storage blob copy start. After that we have to pass the flags. It's nothing but what is the source container from where I have to pick up the file, and what is the blob name, source blob name, source container, source blob name, similarly destination container and destination blob. Okay, followed by that my storage account name, and then mention the tier in which you want to place the copied file to. So I have to mention archive if I want to copy the file to an archive tier. Okay, and then I have to mention the account key. This is for authenticating myself or providing the credentials kind of. So this command is going to help me copy the file from one container to another container and place it in the archive tier. Okay, I already executed this command, and then I can see the file moved to archive tier here. I just delete it, and just make sure you are not deleting any archive tier blob because it's going to incur cost. Okay, so we shouldn't do anything frequently with an archive tier blob. So it's placed in archive because it shouldn't be touched, or it should be offline. Okay, so let me run this PowerShell script and show you what happens. So I'm expecting two things. One is I have to look at the metadata of the test.txt file. It has to be converted from hot to cool. After it is converted and metadata is displayed, I have to copy it to a different container in a different tier. So let me refresh this. So I'm just doing some research on how do we filter out blobs from a container, specifically with respect to tiers. Okay, if I have blobs of different tiers like archive, cool, and hot and all, how to handle that? Because whenever I try to list the contents of a container that has an archive tier, it doesn't let me. So I'm just checking if there is any available option. So if I come across, I'll just let you know. See, from hot it is moved to cool tier, and I should also have a copy of the same file in the test container, okay, in archive tier. So this is how we change the tier of a blob and we access the metadata. So if you want to look at the metadata, just go to standardout.txt and then have a look at the properties of the file. So this is the property of the file. From here you have to see the properties of the file. So what and all you see here, everything about your blob. Okay, when was it last modified, when was it created, what is the blob type, what is the copy status, and what is the tier, access tier. Initially it was hot and then it's moved to cool now. So all these kind of information you will be getting if you execute that PowerShell command. Okay, I'll be providing the PowerShell script, or I'll just copy that to my Git repository and give the link, whichever is feasible. Okay, thanks a lot for watching. That's it for this video. I'll provide more video related to Azure PowerShell and command line interface in the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much for watching. Request you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Thank you so much.